The Raiders get a much-needed W, and we get to talk about it. Welcome on in. It is the Silver and Zach podcast. I like to do these things where, ebony and ivory, which wouldn't work for us. But in this one, I'm going to do the pain and the pleasure. Sean O'Connell would be the pain as a former MMA fighter, and I'm the pleasure because let's face it, I make everybody happy. Ish. Anyways, he's Sean O'Connell on Twitter at Real OCSports. I am Zachariah at Zak Sports, ZAK Sports. So this was a game, Sean, that you're playing the Texans at home. The Texans are 1-4-1. I hate the tie, but 1-4-1. Not a really good team. Really rebuilding the whole Deshaun Watson fiasco, saga, whatever you want to call it. And you want to win by 18 points. But at halftime, this bad boy was 20-17. So you had a one score, you had a field goal score game at half, but then they just blow the doors open in the fourth quarter. And what have we talked about in every single podcast, pretty much? OC, the offensive line. And boy, I don't know if it was just because the defense for the Texans is a sieve, but Josh Jacobs ran all over him.
10-10 at halftime. As you mentioned, still a close game in the third. 21-point explosion for the Raiders in the fourth quarter.
I meant after the third. I meant going into the fourth after the third.
Not the half. That's all right. Listen, what I have called for, right? What I have called the Raiders out for this year, I might be wrong about it. If the offensive line can play this well against quality competition, which of course is a big if, then I owe an apology to the folks responsible for constructing this roster, for putting together this offensive line, for the offensive line coaches, for every player that has played on that offensive line. If you can continue to produce in the run game like this, then you will find some more wins on the schedule than I had anticipated for this Las Vegas Raiders football team. And Josh Jacobs obviously deserves a ton of credit for what he's able to do. I called for more touches, right? As many touches as you can get for Devontae Adams. And I had put previously in that same category, I was like, you got to get Waller the ball as much as you possibly can. You got to get Adams the ball as much as you possibly can. Use Hunter Renfrow as like a nice little accessory piece, but give the ball to your stars. And I had not put Jacobs in that star category. And for this Raiders roster, maybe not relative to all NFL running backs, for this Raiders roster, though, he absolutely is emerging in 2022 as a star that needs to be talked about as one of the most reliable producers on this offense. So give that man the ball when you're in trouble. Give that man the ball as often as you can, especially against the terrible Texans. Let's go. 38-20. Their highest offensive scoring output of the entire season, Zachariah.
Yeah, well, this is 3 weeks in a row now. A win over the Broncos, a devastating 1-point loss against the Chiefs, and now a win over the man, if they had just won that damn Chiefs game, can you imagine 3-3 going into the easy part of your schedule? It would feel totally different. It's not like I'm telling Raider Nation not to still be excited and be optimistic moving forward, but 3-3 with a win in Arrowhead totally changes our conversation about this team. But yeah, to your point, highest scoring output, they hadn't scored 30, and they scored 32 against the Broncos. 29 against the Chiefs, unfortunately, and then 38 against the Texans. So I thought it was a tremendous balance between the run game and the pass game. And Josh Jacobs, I'm just going to go off the cuff just a little bit here, OC. Humor me. And I hope it's not the case because I like to believe the best in people and in athletes and all that good stuff. But doesn't it seem very frequent that players kind of play out of their mind in contract years as Josh Jacobs is set to be a free agent after this season?
What's wrong with that?
Because I would think that you would I would think that you would play like it's a contract year every season, to take pride in your performance and try your hardest all the time. Don't go 75% of the time and then it's contract year and now all of a sudden you're going 100%.
I don't think that's what it is. I think what it is somebody knowing that their future is at stake, and they're not deliberately going 75%, 80%, 91%, whatever you want to say. No one does that. No one deliberately coasts or underperforms or puts in a reduced amount of effort. I think, though, what happens is in these contract years, discussions are had and a realization is made, probably while you're standing in front of the mirror, that, like, man, if I keep playing the way that I have played, I'm not going to get the paycheck that I want. I'm not going to be as desirable as I. So it's not about like you underperform. It's about you find a new level, right? You rise to a new level when you're in that contract year. And also, realistically, it's almost impossible to sustain like truly max effort all the time. Nobody does it. And the only people who do end up being absolute insane legends, right? The only people who truly prepare as hard as they can all the time end up being lonely savants like Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, like Tom Brady. We're finding out the dark side of Tom Brady's greatness right now, right? Like
Well, the consequences of it, yeah.
These people who are just like fanatically obsessed with winning and improving their performance, they are exceptionally rare, even in the world of professional sports. And you know who they are because they're the true legends of the game, but it's not always something that can be sustained by your average person or even your average pro athlete. So I don't put any evil on someone who performs better in a contract year. All of us have a little something more in us relative to our daily performance in our jobs, in our life, in our whatever. Everybody has another probably 10, 15, 20% to reach true maximum in like he's just more diligent in making sure he uses up that 10, 20% right now because it determines his financial future.
Yeah, I don't know. Part of that bothers me. I would think that you would play like it's your contract year every year. I know what you're saying, and I'm not saying that situations or circumstances can't affect the way that you play, but I would just think 110% all the time. That's what coaches tell you, 110% all the time. It shouldn't be
realistic. Like that's the thing is I mean, seriously, you can rattle off all the people, right, that put in all the hours on a basketball court that are legendary for their weight room performances that are like we know who they are. They're all Hall of Fame type players, right? So what stops everybody in the NBA? I'm talking about every single person in the NBA who doesn't have another job, who doesn't have to worry about their finances. You can be the lowest guy on the roster in an NBA on an NBA team, and you are absolutely financially set for now, right? You don't have to worry about anything else. What stops all of those people, Zachariah, from putting in an extra 4-hour shooting session instead of going out to the club? What stops all of them from 1,000 free throw practices every single day? All this stuff that you heard about Michael Jordan, you heard about Kobe Bryant, the way that they would be like in the gym by themselves. Why are they in the gym by themselves? It's not because they're the only ones who have like the physical ability to do that. It's because they're the only ones wired that way. It's not realistic to expect everybody to be that way.
And I understand that. I'm not asking you to be maniacal like those guys, not at all. But I'm guessing
all the time. You're asking
no. I'm guessing that what the difference between what Josh Jacobs is doing now and what he's been doing in past years, I don't think that he's all of a sudden turned into a Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan type work ethic. I bet you it's just trying a little bit harder, not going crazy and not having a life, but just the extra whatever to make it look like such a huge, and who knows, I could be totally wrong. He could be trying the same amount that he has. Every time it's a contract year and a guy all of a sudden balls out, and this happens more in basketball than it does in football. But every time I see that, and then they get the fat deal, and then the next year they've fallen off a cliff. I mean,
That's what I have a problem with, right? Like not the guy who sees the carrot dangling out in front of him, just like, gosh, if I can put myself in, the category of top running backs or the category of top small forward, if I can put myself in this category of most productive point guard in the game right now, then I will get a big fat contract. I have no problem with that. What I do have a problem with, and this is kind of an extension of your point, is after you sign on the dotted line, the fall off the next year. like the notorious Albert Hainsworth situation or Chris Johnson. You remember Chris Johnson with the Titans for like 2 years? He's the best. And then he gets this fat deal and he's just like, cool, I am done with the effort. I am over it, right?
Le'Veon Bell, too. Le'Veon Bell, he sat out a year. He was like, I hadn't seen a running back run like Le'Veon Bell. Actually, it's two totally different styles. I was going to say Barry Sanders, but Barry Sanders was more. But like Le'Veon's vision was unbelievable. He sat out a whole year because he wanted a fat deal, got one from the Jets, and then I don't even think I remember hearing from him again. But yeah, okay. And now I feel you. There is a difference between that and what.
Talking about a Raiders win over the Texans, you know who's going to be a really interesting case study on this?
Huh.
Deshaun Watson is going to be really fascinating to watch after all of this stuff is behind him, and that's such a complicated topic that we don't have enough time to get into on this podcast. Like, it's crazy, especially with a new lawsuit against him that clearly shows that this was a woman who was pursuing him. I'm not trying to indicate that was the case with all of those women, but in at least one case, it would appear because of the messages that have been released. But anyway, I don't want to go off on that tangent. Deshaun Watson is going to be one of the most fascinating case studies, probably the most fascinating case study we've had in the NFL with this. You were something promising, you were something exciting, on that rookie contract.
More than that, hang on, OC. More than that, he was like top 5, top 10 quarterbacks. Forget promising.
All right, so you looked like you were going to be in that conversation with Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and all that kind of stuff, right? That's the way that he was trending, okay?
Yeah.
And then this terrible mess happens, right? That, as far as we know, he perpetrated with his own disgusting behavior. But neither here nor there. The NFL decides that they're going to keep him around after this 1-year suspension, which he only loses like $1 million or $2 million in salary because of the way.
That was so shady. That's the way they structured it because they knew it. But it's not the full year. I think it's only 11 games.
It's something like that. So he doesn't lose much.
No, right? He's coming back this year.
But then he gets $240 million guaranteed.
Every penny.
That's going to be really fascinating because is he motivated in the same way to be the same quarterback he might have been were it not for a fully guaranteed deal? And the NFL hates this. All the other owners hate this. Everyone who, the Ravens especially hate this because they don't want to pay Lamar a fully guaranteed deal, and he's holding out for that. He doesn't even have an agent. He's just like, no, I'm as good or better than that guy. And he got a fully guaranteed deal. That's what I'm wrong. Like, they broke the mold with a contract here. Now, if he plays up to a level, right, if he delivers them to Super Bowl contention, then that's going to be the new standard. But if he falls off the way that some of these other guys have that we've talked about, right? And the Raiders, like, was it Robert Gallery that they drafted really high and then they paid a bunch of money and he never really lived up to it, right? The Raiders have had this situation too where you
Randy Moss.
You throw a bunch of money at somebody and they just never live up to it. If that's what happens with Deshaun, there will be a huge sigh of relief from every NFL owner because they'll be like, whew, okay, see, now that's the cautionary tale. Now when I go to a negotiating table with my quarterback's agent and they're just like, we want $250 million fully guaranteed, you say, no. The Browns did that and look what happened to them. That's not a business practice we're going to engage in. But if he comes back and he plays like he did pre-guaranteed money, pre-big fat contract, now we're talking about something different, and the NFL salary cap needing to be raised or a luxury tax implemented or something like that, because sooner than later, you're not going to be able to build a successful roster around quarterback salaries like this one.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be one of those guys that falls off the cliff because of the guaranteed money for multiple reasons. One, I think that he's, despite his shortcomings, he's one of the hardest workers. You saw that at Clemson. You saw that in Houston. Plus, I think because of all this mess, he's going to be even more motivated to do well. Just, I don't know why, but like almost as like, I could see him seeing it as some sort of verification or justification or like, I don't know. I just feel like he knows that if he does bad on top of the guaranteed money and all those allegations, that it'll even be worse. So I don't think he's going to be one of those dudes. But to your point about the guaranteed money, it's funny because after Deshaun signed that, two fat mega contracts were signed without the guaranteed money, which kind of just makes his an anomaly. Because Russell Wilson signed a fat deal with the Broncos. Boy, how was that looking? And Kyler Murray signed a fat deal with the Cardinals, but both deals were similar to like the Patty Mahomes deals, where it was big money and the number looks large, but the guaranteed money, I can't believe, I mean, that's how desperate the Browns are, that they had to guarantee him every dollar. But I'm sure Lamar Jackson was like, Kyler, Russ, what are you doing? You're killing me here. We got to stick to the Deshaun Watson deal, but probably not realistic. Anyways,
but hold on. Just to be fair, though, Russell Wilson, who's at a completely different juncture in his career than these young bucks that are coming up, right? He's at a completely different spot than Kyler Murray is even. But you got $165 million guaranteed from them.
Yeah.
Like 245 was the big number, but 165 guaranteed, that's a stupid number too, especially given the way that he's been playing.
No, I know, but I think, I bet you Lamar's looking for more. I think he wants closer to 100% of his contract guaranteed. Anyways, to bring it all back to why we started with this is that Josh Jacobs is on, he's going to be a free agent. And so he was quoted after the game. He said, I think it's more of a credit to the offensive line. He topped 100 yards for the third straight game. I come back to them all the time because I feel like it's the first time in a long time where I've had 4 to 5 yards without being touched by anybody. They're making it pretty easy on me, and I'm going to make sure I take care of them for sure. He was asked about Christmas because I guess frequently quarterbacks and running backs take care of their O-line on holidays and stuff. Buy them Rolexes or whatever the bleep.
Yeah, but you got to remember they're old linemen, right? So very few old linemen want the Rolex. Like,
I just want some loot.
they want things like 4-wheelers,
Yeah. I always like stories like that, But yeah, just to get back to the game, I love the balance. They threw 27 times and they rushed 27 times. That's a pretty even split, I would say, OC. But yeah, I mean, 7.2 on the ground for Jacobs. And Carr didn't have a spectacular game. He didn't really need to, but he didn't turn the ball over. He only took 1 sack. He takes it more than he needs to. But in general, yeah, I mean, this game was ultimately a huge credit to the O-line.
And like I said, if this is sustainable and they can continue this, and you already mentioned the way that the schedule softens up a little bit, then I will come on the Silver and Zach podcast, and I won't buy them what Josh Jacobs is going to buy them, right? I'm not getting anybody a Rolex, but like I'll purchase little Hot Wheels 4-wheelers or something for all the offensive linemen as an apology. Because,
by the way, it's funny that you say that. I was listening to Boomer Esiason. This is so random that you said that. I was listening to Boomer Esiason, and it was after he left Cincy, he went to the Jets, and he was in the game, and there was this wide receiver, this like rookie wide receiver that was totally disgruntled, and Boomer Esiason was getting really irritated with him, so they're in the huddle, and he tells the guy, he goes, look, if you catch this pass, I will buy you a Mercedes. And his eyes lit up, and Boomer said he threw like a terrible pass, but the guy made the most ridiculous acrobatic catch in the world, and he caught it, and they got the first down. So anyways, they like kick a field goal or something, and he comes back, and he goes, yeah, I'm going to get my car. So he said the next day he showed up with like a Mercedes-Benz truck, but it was like a one, not like a mini truck like you're talking about, but like the ones that the kids drive. You know what I mean? So like medium size. So I can't believe he said that.
First of all, that's cold-blooded. You can't do that. If Boomer, that's funny, but then he should have also bought him a real Mercedes.
Yeah, I don't think Boomer had the money. Quarterbacks weren't getting paid back then like they are today.
Mercedes were also $22,000 back then instead of like $100.
Yeah.
I think he should have. It's not cool. If you tell someone you're gonna buy him a Mercedes, you got to buy him a Mercedes because especially that sounds like that was some idiot young buck wide receiver.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, if you said I would have been heated if I was him, but yeah. Anyways, I thought that was funny because you literally said it. So yeah, in terms of the defense, I continue to be impressed with the front four, and then after that, I would say the linebackers have been doing well, but the secondary is kind of killing me. There's been numerous. They're not turning their head. They're giving up. I think they're paranoid about getting beat deep. So they're giving up a lot of stuff, but it's not even short stuff. It's like medium range stuff. So I think if anything, if they're going to make, I know the NFL is usually a big at the trade deadline. But if I were to make any sort of trade, I would have said in the beginning of the year offensive line, but now I would say something with the DBs or the safeties.
Something that I do a lot of stuff with college football. That's my day job, so to speak. But like something that the NFL has adopted, and a lot of teams when they go against proficient passing squads, a lot of what's happening now is the bend but don't break philosophy, and it's something that defensive football fans are getting like irritated by, and they have a hard time with. But because quarterbacks are so good now, because wide receivers are so good now, because route structures and the rules in football have encouraged passing, a lot of defenses, and the Raiders are probably they're probably going to end up having to adopt this the way that everyone else does, especially against their best passing opponents. And the Texans are not that. A lot of it is people are staying in too high. They're going into three high. They're keeping things in front of them, and the underneath route structures are becoming more prevalent. But they're just trying not to get beat deep, and that's something that you kind of it's a compromise that people sort of have to accept now in football. That like good passers with good receivers are just going to beat you. They just are, because DB is the hardest job in the game. And especially if you don't have a pass rush with 4 or 5 men, you have to just assume that the ball is going to be completed more often than it's not completed, and you have to keep it in front of you. If you start pressuring by bringing help from the safeties and the corner blitzes, and then you rotate guys back, man, you will see, watch some college football. I know it's not your favorite thing, but you will see when people go against USC right now, USC is probably the best example. When people play against the Trojans right now, they're just like, ugh. They got a great quarterback and a bunch of wide receivers, and we can't sack this guy. So just keep everything in front of you. Don't get beat deep. And it sucks because the numbers go up and the scores go up, and everyone gets to hammer the over. And it's just too rare now to have defensive backs proficient enough to truly win one-on-one battles against wide receivers for 5 and 6 seconds. So if a quarterback has that much time, they are going to beat you, unless you got Sauce Gardner or somebody like that back there, and the Raiders obviously don't.
Yeah, but it's just, I mean, the front four is giving them. I mean, it's not like they have to cover for a long time, because your secondary could be the best in the world, but if your front four is not getting to the quarterback, eventually a wide receiver is going or somebody's going to get open. But I don't know. That just continues to kind of stand out when I'm watching the game. Like that's definitely their weak spot.
Can we acknowledge the most momentous occasion of this Raiders season that happened in the win? This was the thing that Raider fans should be most excited about.
Oh, I think I know where you're going, but go ahead.
Chandler Jones finally got his damn hand on a quarterback. It finally happened.
Hey, it only took 7 weeks, 6 weeks with the bye.
Into the season, your highest paid defensive player finally got his hands on a quarterback.
I'm telling you, his impact is more than that. But yeah, I hear you. That was nice to see for sure. All right, a couple of just side notes. I think these are both throwaway notes, but it was funny because the Raiders cut wide receiver Tyron Johnson, who never ended up being the deep threat that they wanted, and then he got the Texans ended up signing him. So he went back to where he was going to play anyway the week before, because the Texans went to Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. I thought that was kind of funny. And then Cowboys acquired Jonathan Hankins from the Raiders, the defensive tackle. But that was, as you said when we were talking before the before the show, just kind of a depth ad for the Cow. I mean, they seem to be excited about it. I saw quotes from Mike McCarthy, so maybe not something. I mean, all they did was move up. Basically, the Raiders traded him in a 7th, and then they got back a 6th. I don't know if do you put value in like 6th and 7th round picks? Should I be not dismissing those as much? I'd like to look up the history of greatest. I mean, I know Brady was a 6th, right? But I'd like to look up what percentage of 6th and 7th round picks end up having like a decent 8-year career in the NFL.
I've looked this up, and I think the average career for a 6th round pick is something like a season or less than a season, right? I mean, if you draft well and you develop well, obviously that can change. But 6th and 7th round picks are a half step above undrafted free agents, and I think are oftentimes less successful than undrafted free agents. But don't dismiss them. Picks are picks. They can always be packaged and moved for other things. So you don't you never know when your 6th round pick is going to end up being Antonio Brown, Antoine Bethea, Tom Brady, Mark Bulger, Adalius Thomas. These guys are all 6th round picks.
Antonio Brown?
Remember Matt Burke, the old Vikings center, and I think he played for the Ravens for a little while.
I do remember that name, but hang on. Antonio Brown, the nut job that took his jersey off and ran off the field?
Correct.
He was picked in the 6th?
Yes.
Holy crap, I didn't know that.
Why do you think he dropped so far in the 2010 draft?
Oh, see, off the field stuff going into the draft. Yeah.
Correct.
Gee, that guy.
The old Central Michigan Fire Up Chips, all right? The Chippewa. Matt Hasselbeck. Matt Hasselbeck overall, great career. Good football player, and then another couple million a year for perpetuity as a broadcaster. So that guy did it smart. Terrell Davis.
He got to the Super Bowl. But I'll only remember him for I don't know what age I was, but they were in the playoffs. It went to overtime. They said, "Do you want to kick or receive?" And he got on the microphone at Lambeau and said, "Receive." And then on the first play, he threw a pick 6 to end the game. I will never. That is the most embarrassing thing. I can't even come up with another scenario. The whole crowd can hear you. You're on the microphone. You're in Lambeau. You receive, and we'll take the ball, and then we're gonna win. And then first play. It's not like they ran the ball once, passed incomplete. No, first play of overtime, pick 6 to end the game. Is there anything more embarrassing than that?
I can think of maybe one or two, but not in a football scenario. Terrell Davis, you remember TD?
TD?
Terrell Davis, Denver Broncos running back, former league MVP.
Yeah.
6th round pick.
Yeah, there you go. Well, those are.
No, I'm going to keep going. You asked, so I'm going to keep going. Greg Lloyd, the old Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker. 6th round pick. Mark Rippon, Jay Novacek. All right, we got some good 6th round picks, man. So the hope, not even hope, my expectation now is that the Raiders turn this specific 6th round pick, not any average, not any generic, this specific 6th round pick, because we're talking about it, has to be someone. I'm not going to expect Tom Brady. Has to be someone at least who develops into Greg Lloyd. I don't need like a league MVP situation, but I want someone with some Pro Bowls under their belt.
I would just take a starter out of it. But anyways, yeah, my favorite Terrell Davis story real quick. I love it so much that he couldn't see. He got hit and knocked out and he couldn't see. And Shanahan just told him, "Hey, just go out there in the huddle. We're not going to run the ball, but we're just going to use you as a decoy." So he went into the huddle. He said he literally couldn't see. And so he said, "I could hear everything." And Elway, I guess, positioned him on where to go and just to be a decoy. So the defense thought there was a chance that he could run it. All right, final Raiders note before we move on to the rest of the NFL. This is a lighter topic. Very much off the field, although the performance was on the field. I'm learning this on the fly. I was shocked to find out that you already knew this before I said anything about it, but I'm going to read it with you. Iggy Azalea, the Australian rapper, I think she was with, what's the name of that, the basketball player? Swaggy P.
Yeah.
Who's most infamous for shooting a three-point shot, turning around and celebrating, and it going in and out. That was actually a perfect couple. They should have stayed together. So it says that most of the fans in Vegas at Allegiant Stadium, that they liked the show, but one reporter didn't seem thrilled about watching the fancy Croner live. Quote, the combination of Allegiant Stadium trying to make barbecue and Iggy Azalea performing at halftime is going to make me depressed, the Athletics' Tashawn Reed tweeted Sunday. All right. Azalea, 32, caught wind of Reed's comments and responded to the Raiders beat reporter the following day. If you think you're depressed now, I'll spare you the tears. You'd cry knowing what my paycheck was to come and jiggle a little ass. Reed then apologized to the Grammy nominee, posting she turned herself into a career? I thought she was like a one-hit wonder.
I mean, even being a one-hit wonder gets you a couple of halftime gigs 10 years later.
That's hilarious. A short time after the exchange went viral, Azalea made it clear verbal. He made a joke, I made a joke. Yeah, that's not that big of a deal, but that's good comeback by her. I like that. I can't believe that she made a career out of her. So I swear to God, I thought, wasn't she like, I'm fancy? Something like that. Fancy was like her like, can't touch this MC Hammer one-hit wonder, Vanilla Ice Baby. Yeah, but apparently not.
Back in 2014, yes.
Yeah. But apparently not. If she's doing halftime shows and still getting paid, good for her. All right, let's move on.
Guess what her real name is?
Iggy Azalea.
Amethyst, like the gemstone amethyst.
Okay.
Her name is Amethyst Amelia Kelly.
Wow. She could have just kept Amethyst. That's not a bad artist name.
It's hard to say.
Amethyst, I know. Especially if you have a lisp.
Amethyst.
Amethyst. My best friend has one. Anyways, let's go around the league now. We don't need to touch on Cardinals Saints from Thursday Night Football last week, do we?
No. All we need to talk about around the league is the fact that Christian McCaffrey with the
how'd that work out for you?
The beloved San Francisco 49ers. This is spectacular. I love this.
How did that work out for you on Sunday?
You mean I should have expected Christian McCaffrey to be the savior of a program literally 2 days after he signed with the team?
Hey, he played, didn't he?
So Christian McCaffrey should have gotten his brand new gold 49ers helmet, put it on, and then led them to a victory.
Yep. No, that was a tough spot. Obviously, they got to work him in. He's got to learn the system. What I thought was cool, I guess with technology, it's not that weird or surprising. But he had the playbook on the plane on his way to San Francisco. So he studied it the whole flight, and then he got in there. I mean, he's CMC. He doesn't need to know that much of the system. But, yeah, he's going to need some time to work it in. Plus, on top of that, they're playing Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. So there's not much to expect there.
You know what's amazing, though? You know what I love the most about this move? First of all, he's overpaid right now because of his durability. But the thing that I like most about this is it's the biggest flex ever from John Lynch. And no one's maybe people are talking about this. I haven't heard people talking about this. It's the biggest flex from John Lynch, who's basically telling Kyle Shanahan, everyone thinks you're an offensive genius, okay? Everyone thinks you're the most creative play caller and play designer and run game specifically designer in the league. Everyone credits you for this. I have now given you the two most versatile offensive players in all of professional football. All right? Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel are guys that can be used in myriad ways. I guess I should say two of the three most versatile players because Taysom Hill is a freak. But
that's true. That's true. Actually, real quick, quarterback, running back, and tight end, I think you got to make him the most versatile because those guys aren't playing quarterback.
He's returned kicks and punts. The guy is unbelievable.
Anyways, back to your point.
But my point is, like, this is John Lynch, who is a Stanford guy, adding a Stanford guy to the roster, and it's just like, hey, what we have here, Mr. Shanahan, is a situation where you do not have any excuses, okay? This is somebody who is considered, when healthy, an elite running back in the National Football League. You got that. Your run game before was incredible with guys who were undrafted free agents and fifth-round draft picks and names who became household names because of your blocking schemes, okay? Now you have the talent. Go win some football games with these guys because we know the QB stinks. Jimmy Garoppolo stinks, Zachariah.
No, he doesn't.
He's terrible. He makes no adjustments to pressure.
Above average.
He's well below average. He's awful.
Okay. Right.
And he doesn't care. He's the most nonchalant dude. He's just like, well, you tried to screw me, Niners. This is bad. Now I'm your starting quarterback again.
Back-to-back NFC Championship games.
When was that?
Appearance.
Was that 21 and 22?
Last year he got to the NFC Championship game, lost to the Rams. The year before that, they got to the Super Bowl and lost to Patrick Mahomes. Hey, how are you going to fault Jimmy G for losing to Patrick Mahomes, huh? Yeah, sure, he missed Emmanuel Sanders to win the Super Bowl by about 4 yards, but Emmanuel Sanders should have been running faster.
Going back to your philosophy.
It would have been worse if he underthrew it. I know you remember that Bud Light commercial, Leon.
Yes.
Please tell. Okay, if you don't, anybody listening, go look it up. But he's sitting at the locker, and they go up to him. They go, so how do you feel about today's game? And he goes, well, I hate to say it, but I got to put the blame squarely on the shoulders of my teammates. And the reporter goes, what about your 3 fumbles? He said, wouldn't have been fumbles if one of them picked it up. And then they go, wow, there ain't no I in team. And he goes, ain't no we either. That's one of my favorite commercials ever. Anyways, go ahead. Jimmy Garoppolo sucks, and then what?
That's all.
Oh, okay.
Now,
So you really think this is like you really think this is a flex? Because I think Shannon, by the way, on a side note, the connections between all these guys is ridiculous. Shanahan, who's Mike Shanahan's son, coached Ed McCaffrey on the Broncos, who's C-Mac's dad. And then I don't know how Lynch is worked in, but Lynch was either coached or played with somebody in there, whatever. Crazy connections between all those guys.
The craziest thing with all the connections is that, like, basically, like, for the most highly regarded young coaches in the NFL right now, we're all random, like, nobody assistants on what was then the Washington Redskins staff, like, 10 years ago. Like,
oh, yeah, I think
McVay and LaFleur and Shanahan, and I think Robert Saleh was part of that. It's just like all these dudes were just like analysts.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, it obviously a huge splash. And at 3-4, I think what the Niners are most lucky is that the division is not as strong as everybody thought. Everybody thought the NFC West and the AFC West were going to be the 2 strongest divisions in all of football. But the Rams are coming off that Super Bowl hangover. The Cardinals are going through their stuff. You got the Niners at 3-4. And then the Seahawks are surprisingly doing well, but I think they're probably going to crash at some point. And then in the AFC West, the Chargers, I can't believe people are giving flack to God, I can never remember his name. The Chargers quarterback.
Herbert.
Because we talked about that he's playing through a ton of pain, but they're obviously limited based on that. And then the Chiefs are kind of the toast of the town at 5-2, but the Broncos are obviously have fallen off. So that division is not as good as they thought, giving the Raiders fans more hope.
Please, I mean, yes, if the Raiders during this stretch can make good on some of this like glimmer of hope that we see developing, then you find yourself in the thick of the playoff hunt again. Please tell me, though, since you alluded to the Broncos, please tell me you heard about this. We can't fully confirm if this is true or not, but apparently Russell Wilson on the whatever it was 8-hour flight from Denver to London was working out in the aisle, doing calisthenics on the airplane in the aisle.
Come on.
You haven't seen this?
No.
There's a report out there. Please tell me this is a joke. He's the biggest hardo, fakey, wannabe, weird guy that we know of in the NFL.
But this is a lot for him.
But if you're sitting there doing calisthenics, high knees, and jumping jacks in the aisle of an airplane as you're going on the transatlantic journey to London, and your teammates are all just chilling and sleeping, and you're over there, oh my gosh, can you imagine?
Oh, I literally, I have no words because I'm in shock. You know, he has his own office at the facility. He has his own office. Like, if you're any of his teammates, you just want to punch this guy in the face. And I heard these reports when he was in Seattle that his teammates hated him. And I was like, how could they hate him? This is like, you know, this is fake news, blah, 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 blah. But now I'm starting to, in his TikTok thing, he had like this, I saw one of his TikToks randomly. I don't do TikTok or follow him on TikTok, but it showed up in my feed. And he's got these corny dances where he's like, 4 things that I love. And then he like throws his arm and like faith pops up. And then he's like, my family. And then he's like, you know, whatever, like just super corny. And I'm just wondering, do you think he has any friends on the team?
No. Here's the quote from Russell Wilson. After the report was that he was doing high knees on the airplane, okay? This is from Russell Wilson himself. This is a quote of him speaking to the media. I don't really get jet lagged too often. I've traveled enough to get my system down. I was on the plane the first 2 hours. What's that, an 8-hour flight? The first 2 hours I was watching the film, watching all the cut-ups and everything else. Then the next 4 hours, I was doing treatment on the plane, walking up and down the aisle. Everybody's knocked out. I'm doing high knees, working my legs and everything else, making sure I'm ready to rock. So that was good. The last 2 hours, I fell asleep for 1 hour and then watched film the rest. I feel great.
Well, at least he wasn't doing jumping jacks. Like, as long as he didn't wake him up. But I mean, yeah, not all guys were sleeping. So some of them saw him and were probably just like, are you bleeping kidding me? So you're working out on the plane.
So this is the thing. We're getting all this stuff in hindsight, right? And I don't particularly love that when someone starts to fall off a little bit. And then we're just like, yeah, well, I knew he was going to fall off because he's a weirdo and I don't like this guy and I never did. Like, if you never liked the guy, tell everyone you never liked the guy when he was good. Don't start piling on when he's having his struggles, okay? So, like, if there's someone out there in your life that's highly successful but you don't like them, tell them now while they're highly successful. Don't wait till their downfall to jump on that bandwagon.
And nobody does that, though, by the way. Like, probably 15% of the population. You really see, believe me, as a guy that was on the radio for 5 years and then fell off, you really get to see who your friends were. You didn't abandon me, but there's a lot of people that were fake as bleep, and you find that out. But anyways, go ahead.
So you hear from, Marshawn Lynch being like, bro, we have to go through his business manager to get in touch with him. Yeah. At this point in his life, at this point in his career, he's not playing well enough. He's not the alpha in the locker room enough, getting the results for someone to feel scared about going up to him and being like, Russ, you can't do this shit. You can't. It looks bad for you. It looks bad for us. All the headlines are about how weird you are, okay? So if you're going to do this weird garbage, do it behind closed doors. Like somebody, the coach, part of the reason we never heard about this in Seattle is because Pete Carroll is that dude. Pete Carroll is the guy who can be like, Russ, no, we're not doing jumping jacks on the plane, Russ. Somebody in the Broncos uniform needs to do this to Russell and just be like, hey, man, you might have got away with this when you were a league MVP candidate and when you're a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Right now, you need to be good. You need to be a good teammate. You need to be a member of this team, okay? You need for us to not look at you with the side eye and laugh at you all the time. So you need to start acting like a regular human being.
Yeah, stay out of the headlines. Don't be a distraction. I mean, Ciara's not going to tell him that. Or Sierra. I've never known how to say that one. But yeah. he should have friends in his life. Like, let's say I was Russell Wilson. You would call me and be like, bro, Well, you don't call, but I think in this instance, you would do what you don't normally do because you said I'm the only person that calls you other than your mom.
Correct.
But you call me, you would suspend what you usually do to call me, and I'd be like, damn, OC's calling, not texting. What the hell? Hello? You'd be like, bro, I love you, okay? But the shit that you're pulling, it's a bad look. You're getting made fun of. I don't know if nobody else in your life is telling you this, but you got to change your behavior. And I'd be like, damn, you know what I mean? Like that would resonate. So clearly he doesn't have anybody in his life that's doing that. But yeah, and especially it looks even worse because they're having a. Did you hear that the head coach, who I can't remember the last time a coach got fired mid-year in their first year, but they're saying that if depending on what happens in London, he might get canned when they get back.
Well, I'm fine with it because it's a disaster. But you know what? The best, especially if he's like on that level where he's about to get fired, you know what the best thing for Nathaniel Hackett to do to regain some respect in NFL circles is he should be the guy who walks up to Russell Wilson and be like, look, you're the starting quarterback. You make more money than me. Okay. You've got a better reputation than me. I'm on the hot seat. Here's what I need from you, Russell. I need you to not be a robot weirdo. I need you to be a good teammate that your guys trust. Okay. Because right now they just look at you and are like, this dude who was doing high knees on the airplane is not my kind of guy. All right, go play dominoes on the airplane.
Yeah.
Sit down and play poker on the airplane. Watch a movie on the airplane. Do something else, okay? Yeah. So your teammates like you and trust you. That would honestly, for Hackett, whose job is forfeit at some point, whether it's this weekend or in 6 months, he's not going to be a long-term solution as the Broncos head coach. The best thing that he could do is he could sit his starting quarterback down and just be like, bro, stop with this. Find a friend who can put these weird tendencies you have in check because it makes everybody hate you. And the quarterback, the face of our franchise, is now alienated from the rest of our team. That is bad for us.
Yeah, I also, it really bothers me that he has an office. All right, well, let's wrap this up with kind of two different games in two different packages. So because they kind of go hand in hand. We'll start with the weaker of the two because I don't know about you, but when I hear, do you want the good news or the bad news? I always want the bad news. So we're going to end with the good. The first is just Jets and Giants. And my question is, the hell, OC? The Giants are 6-1 and the Jets are 5-2. These are teams that people were talking about tanking, or not tanking, but having records so bad that this quarterback-rich draft for next year, they were already looking to move on. You got my guy, Danny Dimes in New York, who they chose not to extend in the offseason. And this is like a make or break year for him. I think the worst case scenario is that he has a good year and they sign him to a fat deal. I don't know that they will, but they've been winning a lot more despite him than because of him. But he runs the ball well and he's getting the job done. They have a ton of fourth quarter quarterbacks. And then you have Zach Wilson for the Jets, who was most famous for, his exploits off the field in the offseason. Go look it up, kids, if you want to know what I'm talking about. They've kind of been hiding him also. Only 121 yards in the win over the Broncos. But I just ask you, Sean, I mean, this has got to be a reflection of not only both drafts, because both of them had great drafts, but the coaching coming along. Saleh, obviously, coming over from the Niners, and then I forget the name, the guy that came from the Bills.
Dable.
Yeah. They're like wearing his T-shirt at games and stuff. But this has got to be a testimony to the defense, the run game, and the coaching. Because I think in the case of both teams, I'm not crediting the quarterback for their records.
Yeah. This is not one of those situations where you found the problem eraser at the quarterback position, right? This is not one of those deals where Patrick Mahomes is trying to get onto the field for you, and even when he's under pressure, he's spinning out of it and finding an open target and all that kind of stuff. This is system football. This is a team, in this case, two teams that hired the right coach, that is getting the best out of their personnel and implementing game plans that fit that personnel and finding ways to win. Like it's pretty awesome. And by the way, these very respectable records are coming from rosters that are statistically they're not outliers in any category, right? Like these are not top 5 offenses. These are not top 5 passing offenses. These are not top 5 rushing offenses. These are not top 5 defenses. These are just teams that are getting like pretty baseline consistent performance out of everybody and not leaning on one particular thing. I guess the Giants run the ball better than just about anybody, and that's to be expected when you have the personnel.
Well, part of that is how much Daniel Jones runs, because that's all factored into it. But I mean, because he doesn't pass a lot either. But yeah, I mean, it's just I when you look at the schedule and before the season and the over under in wins, or and now you look at the standings, those two teams, and they both happen to be in New York, just pop out to me.
Well, one of the things that's really interesting to me, and I think is a testament to coaching and also just full awareness of who your personnel is and getting guys to play hard. That's never talked about in the NFL because of this assumption when you're a pro athlete. Well, of course they play hard. It's their job. They always play hard. And it's like, well, that's not always the case. Did you see the play from this last weekend where Kayvon Thibodeau, who's a first-round draft pick for the Giants, the former Oregon defensive end, ran the play down from the backside? They're playing against the Jags, and he runs down Etienne from behind the backside. Number 5.
Yeah.
That's a 280-pound defensive end running the ball down 48 yards down the field or whatever it was. Like, that's not something that shows up as anything besides a tackle and a nice run on a stat sheet. But if you watch that, and it got played on a bunch of highlights, so it is getting some attention. What that is that's effort, right? That's somebody doing everything they can to help their team win and running a play down from behind. If he doesn't make that play, if he doesn't make that effort, we don't talk about it at all. There's no one's criticizing him for it, but no one's praising him for it either. You're just like, yeah, that's just a play. Like Etienne went, and then eventually the last guy, the safety, tackled him. But it wasn't. It was a backside defensive end who ran him down, and that's what you're getting from Daboll or a Daboll coach team. That's very impressive.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Defense and coaching, because clearly they are getting the most out of these guys, because going into the season, nobody was talking about them. All right, we're going to finish up with this. Told you we had kind of a 2-2 package thing. So this 2-2 package is Aaron Rodgers getting beat by Taylor. I always want to say Heineken, but I know it's Heineke or whatever. I think it's a palindrome. If you mix the letters up, you get Heineken. But that's who Aaron Rodgers loses to.
That's not a palindrome. A palindrome is a word or phrase that's read the same backwards as forwards.
Whatever. What is it?
Anagram.
There you go. All right. Well, I think it's an anagram. Anyways, and then you have not only Tom Brady, the GOAT, as much as I still think it's Joe Montana, he loses to P.J. Walker. P.J. Walker actually looked decent. Only threw for 177 yards. But what the hell is going on with, I've heard people say that they think Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback they've ever seen. Obviously doesn't have the resume that Tom Brady does, but these are two of the elite quarterbacks in the league, and they're struggling, both at 3 and 4. What do you make of it, OC?
Well, remind me how old Tom Brady is again.
Don't throw age into there. He looks the same. He looks the same as he did 10 years ago. I think he's 45.
He doesn't look the same. He actually looks gaunt and depressed. So he doesn't look the same. Like Tom Brady's face is skinnier right now than it's ever been in his career. Age does matter. Father Time is undefeated, catches up with everybody, and probably more importantly than the age factor for Tom Brady, because he's shown us that he's been defying that for years. You know the man is going through divorce proceedings.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, and that absolutely. Who doesn't know that? Yes, and absolutely that has everything to do with, not everything to do, but I'm sure that has a lot to do with what's going on. Stuff like that rocks your world, especially when kids are involved. And I'm sure they're not getting along well, and now it's all been leaked. And I'm sure that affects your performance. But I don't put any of this on Tom, OC. I'm putting this on everything around him. I don't know if it's the coaching change and Bruce Arians no longer being there, because He's way more of an offensive guy. Excuse me. I don't know if it's the Gronk not being there, the offensive line kind of being in shambles. I mean, you saw Mike Evans drop that would have been like an 80-yard bomb or whatever. But Tom Brady, to me, it doesn't look like the problem. I know there was a lot of plays where it looked like he was skipping the ball on the ground, but he was doing that on purpose. That was basically the same thing as throwing it away, but he was in the pocket.
Well, Tom has only took 1 sack in this game. You're right. Tom's not what he was last year, but he's also not a problem, right? 290 yards in this game through the air for Tom Brady, and their total for the game was 336 yards. Do the math. They didn't even run for 50 yards as a team in this game. That is completely unacceptable, right?
Yeah, they run the ball. They're averaging They average 2.9 yards per carry.
Yes, they can't run the ball. They allowed the Carolina Panthers to run for almost 200 yards. I think Tom's last 3 games, his quarterback rating is hovering right around 100, and he's like 8 touchdowns and 1 pick or something. So he actually is far from being the problem. But it's always going to be because we make the mistake of attributing wins as a quarterback stat. When a team loses, Tom Brady is going to be the one who has to answer why they lose. And because Tom Brady is not Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady's not going to go out there and be like, because we can't run and our defense stinks right now. That's what Aaron Rodgers does. Aaron Rodgers went out and said, we got to stop playing guys who are making mistakes. Did you see that? Got to take away reps.
Oh yeah. We're gonna get to Aaron Rodgers next. I want you to put a bow on Brady.
Well, my point is, this team's just not very good, and Tom Brady came back to a bad situation because Tom Brady's addicted to football, and it's sad, and this is a stain on his legacy. But at the end of the day, we're gonna all agree, with a handshake and a nod, we're gonna all agree to forget about Tom Brady's 2022 season the same way we've all forgotten about Michael Jordan in a Wizards uniform. No one talks about it. People pretend it didn't happen. That's what's going to happen with Tom Brady and these Buccaneers.
Yeah, I still have faith that they can turn it around. Again, I don't think he knew he was coming back I don't think he factored in how much Todd Bowles would be a big difference between Bruce Arians. I think he probably thought he was going to be able to convince Gronk. Obviously he couldn't foresee the offensive line having just injury after injury. So I still think that they can turn it around. Plus, they're in such a putrid division that they're in first place still right now. So if they turn it around, then not a huge deal. But let's go over to Aaron Rodgers, who you just mentioned. That dude needs to stay off the McAfee podcast, because if I'm any one of his players, I'm looking at him like, bro, seriously? He's basically acting like he's the coach. And take away some reps. Maybe some of the guys that are playing shouldn't be playing. Maybe some of the guys that aren't playing as much should be playing more. I mean, just crazy stuff. And because if you're any of the guys playing, you're like, is he talking about me? And then he's talking about missed assignments. He said something like 2 out of every 10 plays that they run, there's a missed assignment. That's 20%. You can't have that. That means that 1 in every 3. He broke it all down, and he's just airing all this stuff out. And unless he has a relationship with all those guys, I don't know. I'm not in that locker room. Maybe they're all cool with it, but my guess is they're not. And so when he goes into the locker room today, I guess, because was this yesterday that he did all this? I forget. Anyways, the point is, you can't be doing that stuff. And I think they're less likely, especially because they're in a better division. OC, I think they're less likely to turn it around. They look more lost than the Bucs, and you just pointed out all the reasons why the Bucs are lost.
Aaron Rodgers is in the weirdo boat, almost on the same level as Russell Wilson when it comes to alienating teammates. He just doesn't care, right? And the thing that's tough about it is if you're Aaron Rodgers and somebody comes up to you and says, man, you can't be airing our dirty laundry out there like that, he can just be like, you can't be missing assignments 2 out of 10 times. Like, he's not saying that Aaron Rodgers is not the kind of person who's going to say that if it's not true, right? He's not going to say that about his own team if it's not true. He's expressing, I think, through the wrong avenues, his frustration with his teammates and probably with the coaching staff by going on the Pat McAfee podcast. And McAfee can get this out of people because he's friendly with all these players, because he's like super entertaining, because he is unapologetic about his stuff, right? And I think Aaron Rodgers respects that. So he's more likely to go on that platform and say stuff that he won't say like in a press conference all the time. Sometimes he will, but not in the press conference all the time. So the tough part about the Aaron Rodgers situation is he's not just being a weirdo like Russell doing freaking calisthenics and all that, but if he's saying missed assignments 2 out of 10 times, and a guy comes up and is just like, Aaron, you can't air our dirty laundry out, man. You got to keep that in the locker room. He'll say, okay, I will, if you don't miss assignments 2 out of 10 times then. Like, he doesn't care, man. Like, until someone punches Aaron Rodgers in the face, he has no reason not to say this. He is going to be talked about as a universally respected, right most often, and like Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback. So there's nobody on that team who can walk up to him and be like, you can't do that, because he'll say, don't screw up then.
Yeah, I'm Aaron bleeping Rodgers. Yeah, no, I know. It's just I'm surprised that he's not more self-aware. I mean, yeah, you're right. He just doesn't give a bleep. All right, well, we'll end on a light note real quick. Are you a bubbly water? Because my computer battery's about to die again. Are you a bubbly water kind of guy, yes or no?
No. Is that what you're drinking, that SodaStream garbage?
Yes. Oh, God, it's life-changing. Bubbles, I mean, it settles your stomach. I eat a lot of crap, OC, you know, like burgers and fries and mac and cheese and grilled cheese, you know. So bubbly water really settles your stomach.
Did you get the – is that a SodaStream?
Oh, yeah. I ain't paying for all that bubbly water. That stuff's expensive. So you just put your filtered water in there, jack it into the – maybe we'll get SodaStream to sponsor the cast.
The SodaStream sponsor the Silver and Zach podcast, because I'm a big infomercial guy. And I remember a long time ago seeing SodaStream, and like, I don't even drink soda, but I remember being like, that'd be awesome, because I'm such a sucker for infomercial products. Like,
oh, me too. So you know what I learned to do? I just write them down, or I text it to myself, and I never end up ordering it. But every time I see an infomercial, I want it. Stuff that like cooking stuff, and I'm like, you don't even cook. Why do you want that? I'm like, well, it's the non-slick pan. Nothing sticks to it. I'm just like, I want it.
Rest in peace to the OxyClean guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that ShamWow guy who got it all involved in a bunch of weird stuff. The Jack LaLanne juicer. You remember the Jack LaLanne juicer? I had one of those for a minute. Yeah. Ron Popeil and the freaking food dehydrators and the rotisserie ovens, man. I'm a sucker for all of it.
I'm with you.
In fact, if I could have one job that I don't think it would pay the bills, but that you could guarantee me this job will pay all your bills and you'll be happy, you'll be financially secure. You get to choose one job. What do you want to be? You know what I would like to be, Zachariah?
What's that?
I would like to be the actor in the little infomercial that can't do things like just normal things. You know
Yeah.
Like the guy who gets hella frustrated by trying to like open the jar. Just like
yeah.
And then they're like, but we have a solution for you. And it's like a little grip thing. I want to be the guy who just can't do the stuff, like the everyday stuff. Are you hurting your back, reaching up above for the high cabinets? Well, get this little super stool. I want to be the guy that's climbing up on the stool like, that's what
Have your agent look into it. All right, well, Silver and Black Raider Nation goes down to the Bayou. They play the Saints this Sunday. Let's hope that they stay away from Bourbon Street, and we'll react to that. It's been the Silver and Zach podcast with Sean O'Connell on Twitter at Real OC Sports. I'm Zachariah. I'm at ZAK Sports. I'll see you next week, OC. Go Raiders, huh?
Bye.